Good evening. Well, it's Friday night, semi-late. I had a good day today, actually. Um, it was overall a really good day, but that's not really what I want to talk about. I survived the week, so my minor in college was philosophy. Actually, they informed me if I had stayed one more semester and taken a few more courses, I was one course away from a major in philosophy and minor in French. So I could have had a double major. But philosophy was actually my love, love in college. I took a philosophy course, I think, nearly every semester, and it helped me to get up, get motivated, and get to class. And that is truly honest. That's how much I loved it. But when I got to towards the end and I went and sat down with my advisor, and she told me that I already had a minor in it, and because I was asking how many classes I had and what I needed to do, and um, I delved more into English so that I could get that as my major my last year. And because I thought to myself, what am I going to do with a philosophy major? I mean, you get your master's, your PhD, and teach it. And there aren't many colleges, except for the larger ones, that have PhDs in philosophy. So it'd be kind of limiting. And unlike the time of the Greeks, philosophers aren't really admired and listened to, even though they are the real cornerstone um, of ideas and changes in the centuries and millennia. We've now gone to more of a materialistic society where, those with the most money win. And that's not how things really work, in my mind. I have guiltily been caught up in, you know, money being a driving force because we need it to survive. Now, I have not put it in front of other things. I was going to be a lawyer, but married, got pregnant, and had my first child. No family support, really, so couldn't be in law school and have a child. So I went to teaching, which gives you the best possibility to be home the most, to be with your children, and still make a living because I always had to. Um, I never married for money, which, some people would say that was a mistake. But I've been around enough people with money to say the same. I guess, whatever. You can make the same mistake with somebody with money as you can with somebody without money. I mean, I was really bad at picking partners, really bad, until now, in the last decade. So, um, philosophy. Philosophy has to do with, a belief system. Belief systems, different belief systems is what you study. And part of that is religion, different religions. Part of that is different structures in society and what they think will work and won't work. Part of that is an inner exploration of yourself as an individual and as a part of society. Um, it's a way of being able to analyze how other people think and feel and communicate and explore other avenues. It's a process of opening up your mind. Now, that doesn't mean that everything that comes in is valid or makes sense or could even possibly work, but you take bits and pieces from everything that you learn and you try and incorporate it into what it is that you believe. And I have tried to do that. Now, being an adult, growing up and having to be responsible, you can't have the luxury of sitting around and thinking of things or new things and be able to live. Because unlike in Socrates' time and Aristotle and Plato and some of the biggest philosophers you think of, and maybe not necessarily agree with, but they had students who actually admired them, surrounded them, listened to them, conversed with them, gave them ideas. It was a give and take. But today, nobody is going to surround you as a philosopher unless they're paying a college to sit in your classroom. And sadly, it's kind of an example of where the world has changed. That communication and ideas for the betterment of a society coming from a place of morals and values is lost. I'm not saying that, the old philosophers were exactly the uppermost of morals and values, but they discussed it and they bantered ideas. And I don't think anything bad could come from that. As long as you keep common sense in check and reality in check of what would actually really work. And I am guilty, happily guilty, of exploring different things and listening to different things on the internet. Documentaries, talk shows, political, non-political philosophies, psychology, whatever piques my interest. And, some of it's just throwaway stuff, you're just trying to... I've always been fascinated with the way people think, and sometimes horrified at the way people think. But especially in today's world. And, I sit there and wonder, I know my grandparents that are gone, my great-grandmothers that I actually met and were around for, fortunate enough for a while, what they would think of the world today. And I know that they were thinking things weren't that great, and probably the elders before them thought that too, and etc. But it's because we've been headed down the wrong path for a very, very, very long time. The absolute wrong path. And in creating this civilized society, we've become uncivilized in a lot of ways. And really good at justifying being uncivilized. And it's hard to even put into words how uncivilized we've become. Um, and I know that in history, some of this has gone on before. Some aspects of what we're going through now. But it's the culmination of all of them together that makes it so dangerous to me, so worrisome to me. Because in the past, civilizations have fallen, and it's been, you know, 1, 2, 3 mistakes. But our mistakes are greater than 1, 2, or 3. Our where we've come to today in 2019 is just, I mean, the downfall of the family alone since I'm speaking of our country, but it's spread, you know, but the downfall of the family is key to the destruction of our civilization. Absolute key. When you see somebody just blabbing off about all these things that we should or should not do in their world and their need of safe spaces and their need of personal pronouns, I'm just using this as an example, but you have to understand that someone raised that person. And that person, a lot of times, went to a college or a university that has promoted this a lot of times. Not always. Or they live in a certain part of the country, this country, or the one north of us, where these ideas are fostered and applauded on public television. And it's just amazing to me that those kind of thought processes and others like them, and this is what people want to hear. This is what people want to see. We just need to all accept the craziest things you could possibly imagine and say, it's okay. It's okay. And it's not okay. It's not. And if people were to sit down and rationally talk about it and discuss it, they would possibly understand how absurd it is. People of higher intelligence, of common sense, of, your regular person who's had a successful marriage maybe could share how that is even a possibility in today's world. But nobody's listening to those people. They're not listening to them. It's the one who, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. It's those people that are played over and over again in media. It's those people that are listened to. It's somebody famous on a TV screen who can fake being somebody else, which I think would be really easy if you don't want to be yourself most of the time. And those people are admired. The great athletes are admired. But the true thinkers of morality and values and what could actually make this world a better place, nobody wants to hear from them. The politicians spit out all this nonsense of like a Green New Deal. It's going to cost trillions of dollars that we don't have. Like the absurdity of 2 electric buses that need to be charged by electricity, stop at a gas station rest area place, and following them is a diesel truck with generators that are humongous to start to charge the electric buses. It's not logical. We're using a diesel truck with generators that need fuel to charge, diesel generators to charge electric buses. And electric cars, let's see about that concept. What happens if electricity stops? Got a problem. We need to have a resource that is more readily available if SHIT hits the fan, right? I mean, come on. But we can't have that because then there's no money in that. So you can just forget that happening. And if it, people have created different resources to be able to run machinery, but those have been squelched, bought up, people have been killed, whatever, to get rid of it. It's just that our focus is all wrong. And people came to this country originally to get away from prosecution and unfair practices in Europe. And now we're here, and generations later, we're creating more laws than ever intended. And we have the highest population prison system, which are run by private companies. Again, more money. And everything is just ass backwards. And so many things are going on in this world that we don't even realize. And nobody seems to care. Nobody seems to notice. We are drugged out of our minds by Big Pharma because as soon as anything gets difficult, they will readily put you on an antidepressant. And I am speaking from experience. I was diagnosed with PTSD years ago. But even before that, the answer was Big Pharma. Oh, here's the pill, and you'll feel all better. No, you're not going to necessarily feel better. You're going to feel numb. Numb, for the people in charge, is a really good thing. Because if you're numb, you don't care. They can do whatever they want to do. The United States citizens don't run this country anymore. We are not in charge. We are not in charge. But we think we are. Most of the population actually thinks we are. Most of the population believes whatever they see on television. Most of the population doesn't read anymore, except for, just for pleasure if they read at all. Most of the population, if they picked up a book, they couldn't really comprehend what they're reading, and it's so sad. I'm not saying that to be an elitist or say it's a fact. It's a fact, and it's sad. And they think that these young kids today want to be singers and actors and actresses and a big time athlete, and because that's what they see that is admired. That's their goal. Money, 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 money. You don't hear a kid today hardly say, oh, well, my goal is to have a family and be there for my children and raise them and have a good life and pass on, skills. And no, it's just money. Money. That's their goal. To be as rich as possible. Because that's what they admire. And it's the breakdown of any sort of, I'm not talking about just organized religion, but any sense of something bigger than themselves, any sense of consequences for their actions. I mean, they see consequences as a police officer. They don't see consequences as spiritual at all. They death is like way down the road. And for adults too. A lot of them don't even think about it or don't believe in anything at all. Because to them, it's not their problem today. That won't happen to me mentality that we're supposed to grow out of when we reach adulthood. That they just have all the time in the world and we're just going to live forever. And I don't know, I had a greater sense of mortality at a younger age. I knew it wasn't going to be forever. My best friend died at 19 in a major car accident. I saw how fast, how quick things can change. How death can come and get you. That we're not all guaranteed 100 years. And I do believe we're here for a purpose, but I believe most of us aren't fulfilling our purpose. And that's my biggest worry, is to not fulfill my purpose, to not communicate my purpose. And with censorship and most people not wanting to hear ideas that don't fit into their bubble of making money and, just doing whatever it takes to be happy, no matter what it is, and being judged, we're not hearing everything we need to hear anymore. We're not hearing anything that matters anymore. And if you go to church, you're going to hear the same sermons every year, every Sunday, depending on what time of year it is. It's the same thing. You're not going to delve into anything deeper than the superficial stuff. I mean, if you go to church long enough, you can pretty much plan out what they're going to say in that weekly pamphlet that they hand you in church. You got it mapped out. It's routine. Routine. And I guess some people just can't think past the surface. There's not any depth there anymore. And if you have depth and you mention things that are not comfortable, and I say that in quotes, not comfortable, then they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it at all. It's a waste of time. They'd rather watch television. They'd rather do something else. So for people like me, it's a lonely existence. It's a very lonely existence. I mean, how many people do you think that I run into during the day that I could actually have a deep, meaningful conversation with? None. None, because we don't take the time out to do it. And most don't want to. So, I don't know. I just don't see us headed in the right direction. Just my thoughts. And I worry greatly for my children and their children and what they're going to be facing. And I'm not going to be here one day to help. I'm not going to be here one day to put things into perspective. Are they going to be able to put things into perspective? Are they going to be able to realize what's really important? Are they going to have anybody to talk to? Are they going to have anybody who knows more than just the average person? I don't know. And I've discussed some things with them, but I've only discussed so much because I don't want to bog them down in things that are worrisome or, that could cause problems. I don't want them to be estranged from society. I mean, I've done a great job of blending in. I'm really good at blending in. And I'm okay with me enough now. It's been a struggle. But I've been around a lot of people in my life. I have a lot of acquaintances, but friends, true friends, those are few and far between. Very few and far between. And most people, I'm just really not interested in getting to know because there's just not much there. There's no depth there. It's a lot of superficial stuff that doesn't really matter. But I mean, also on the flip side, you can talk about things, but what can you really do? It takes numbers to make a difference a lot of times. Maybe I need to put it in a book. I don't know. What do you put it under? Fiction? Nonfiction? The hardest part about writing, and I've written a lot of papers, is getting started. That first paragraph is the worst. But after that, you're off and running. But it's that first paragraph that holds you up. That first sentence, the second sentence, that third sentence. But once you can get that first paragraph completed, you can take off from there. But I don't know. Just my thoughts. Just some things to think about for those of you who think a little bit more like me. Just to know that there are those of us out here that if you're like me in some ways, you're not alone. This is my way of talking to someone. This is my therapy. And I hope y'all have a great weekend. I'm glad it's Friday. Good night.